and welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. And this is a player ratings video for the 4-1 defeat to Brighton, of course, last night. Yeah, it's been quite difficult working up the motivation to make this video, if I'm going to be completely honest. And obviously, there's still a lot of questions to be answered about this match and going forward, what it might mean. Obviously, at the time of recording, Lampard's future still hangs in the balance, I guess. I think it's looking more likely as time goes on that it's not going to be the end of his spell yet. Whether or not I agree with that, I guess we'll kind of get into as we go along, really. But yeah, I mean, the elephant in the room is that it's almost certainly the worst performance of the season. Um, just a complete collapse in the second half. I think in all the anger, it's quite hard to remember that I actually think in the first half, especially starting the match, I think, before Brighton got their first goal, I actually thought we looked kind of up for it, kind of buoyed on by a really credible draw against City a few days ago, which obviously looks a bit like a false dawn at the moment, but I think we were kind of off the back of that, we seemed quite confident, energetic, and but at first we were kind of shutting down what Brighton are so effective at doing, really. And obviously they began to catch us out on the transition, which they're considerably quicker at doing than we are. And once they win the ball back, they get it up the field so quicker, and we're causing us problems throughout the game. But for in the first like 15 minutes or so, we were doing quite well at shutting that down, really. And then once Matoma gets in the lead, that all kind of fell apart, really. And yeah, obviously a collapse in the second half, similar to the Watford defeat last season under Benitez. And yeah, not Goodison was not a nice place to be last night. I was sat in the kind of street right behind the goal, and yeah, it's a club in disarray at the moment. Let's be honest. So that's yeah, we're not in the best position, and I think relegation is looking a very severe threat yet again. Second season in a row, really. But yeah, getting into the player ratings, I think these obviously it's quite hard. You could give there'll be people that think I'm being too generous to some of these players. I've tried to be as even-headed as possible. I've given it nearly 24 hours after kickoff before getting into these things, kind of just letting everything settle a bit, really. And yeah, even now, quite some of these are still quite low, understandably. But actually, starting with Pickford, he's got the joint highest rating of 6, which kind of sets the bar, really. I think. I mean, I was probably a bit swayed sitting right behind him, like about 10 feet away from him in the Gladys Street yesterday, but I could just kind of tell. I think he felt the frustration just as much as the fans did. I honestly do believe that. As soon as the final whistle blew, he just held his hand up. Like, there was nothing more he could say, really. I The fans were angry at players coming over and applauding at the end anyway. So it was probably just best to leave it at that. But you could tell he was sorry and frustrated just as much as we were, and you can't really blame him for any of the goals, really. I don't think. I think you look at the fourth one in particular. It's a one-on-one. He comes out. Maybe he could have come out a bit earlier or whatever, but in that situation, it's always difficult for the goalkeeper. You always put the attacker at the advantage, and I think the defense in front of him that really let him down, rather than any individual mistake from him. I think that most fans would agree with that, really. So he gets a 6. I can't really give him any higher because he didn't really have too many saves to make. Pretty much every shot Brighton had went in, really. And after they got the fourth goal, they kind of took the foot off the gas a bit more. And I think if they really wanted to, they could have got 6 or 7, because we completely capitulated once they got 2 or 3 ahead in the second half. So yeah, that's not really anything down to us that didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, moving on to defence, I think Patterson gets a 5. Caught out for the first goal was really poor from him. Lapse in concentration. I actually thought he was one of the more positive players in the first half. I think we were catching him out down the right, and he was causing not many problems. I don't think they were ever really worried about anything we were doing, but just one of the more positive players out of a bad bunch. But that defensive mistake, and obviously uh, being forced off, getting injured as well, which doesn't look good for future games. I think it's likely he's going to be out for a number of weeks now. Just another frustrating aspect of the game, really. And yeah, I think I'd give him a five. Similarly, I've given Cody a five as well. I actually thought he was unusually poor. He's almost always solid. On a really solid game against City, of course, but he was caught out once or twice. Wouldn't say he was like directly at fault for any of the goals, but getting pulled out of position, all kind of contributing to it. And yeah, I can't really give him any higher than a five. I don't think. Tarkowski I've given a six just because I thought he was our best defender. Um, I think it's hard to blame either of them, but these him and Cody were both brought in to be like leaders from the back and rally us when we're down. And whether I can't blame them for not being able to get through to some of these players, but I think definitely one of the biggest issues in this side is that once we go down, but the players just can't handle the pressure whatsoever, really. And um and yeah, like I say, that we saw that in the capitulation once we went 2-0 down. They just kept coming at us and kept punishing us, and it was like we just didn't have the mentality to deal with that. And so, I mean, that is a big reason why Tarkowski and Cody were brought in. I can't really blame them for, like I say, in not having the effect, but I don't know. I think we might have hoped for gets a bit more impact and being more leaders on the pitch, really. Mikalenko, I've given a four. I've actually been, I've been very I've been full of praise for him most of the time, really. I think since the break, he's probably been one of our better players in the two matches before Wolves and Man City. I thought he was really good in both of those games, and he's usually a really solid defender. I don't know what was up with him against Brighton, but Solly March had him on toast, and this is Solly March we're talking about. I know he's part of a very good Brighton side, but hardly a star player, And the second goal as well, Mikalenko getting dragged away. I'm not entirely sure what he's thinking, really. I think he's trying to block the cross when he doesn't need to, and just leaves the striker completely unmarked. It's an easy finish in the end. So, yeah, Mikalenko gets a four. Just a gay, I've given him a five. There will be people that want me to give him a lot lower than that, but I'm trying to keep in my head that in the first half, I think he was one of our more solid players. He won a few interceptions. Obviously, I'm not overlooking the fourth goal where the back pass, which basically led to him being hooked off a few minutes later. I don't know what he was trying. I don't know if he thought it had the legs to get to Pickford. It was just a complete brain fart from him, really. And yeah, just that was the worst goal of the lot, wasn't it? Just that whole clip going around on Twitter today. So obviously it starts with our free kick, which McNeil completely overhits. We'll get onto him in a moment, but and then yeah, gets back to just again, and he does that. Just grim all around, isn't it? Really. Tom Davis given a four as well. Similarly, looked lost. Obviously, only in because Onana was suspended. You can imagine he'll be back for a Manchester United Cup game on Friday, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to. But yeah, I can see why Davis was started over the likes of Decore, who there's rumours he's going to be out. Hasn't seemed that interested in recent weeks, but yeah, Davis just didn't fit into the system at all. Did he? Look lost, didn't add anything, and I think that was proved by how early Lampard took him off. Really, that yeah, just wasn't working. And then Iwobi, I don't know about this one. I could see him being given lower. I've given him a five. He lost the ball a lot. There were a few decent touches in the first half when we actually had a bit about us a little. I mean, we weren't great, obviously. Brighton had us pretty much locked down, but when there were a few more decent touches and we looked at a tiny bit of confidence going forward, I thought he was one of the main contributors to that, which is why he gets a five. But once he was pushed down to the wing, we all know Iwobi's not a winger, and obviously having to take McNeil off and Iwobi being pushed out to the right led to him just basically losing any sort of impact. And like I say, once Brian got the fourth goal, the game was pretty much dead. We didn't look interested, and it was mostly just a case of making sure it wasn't an even heavier scoreline that we were going to lose to. But yeah, I've mentioned him a few times now, but Dwight McNeil, a free, even that I think's generous. Just I don't want a scapegoat because, like I say, they're all at fault. The whole squad as a whole isn't good enough. But McNeil's the worst of the lot, wasn't he? He was the worst of the lot against Brighton, 100%. Just completely ineffective. He's too slow. He can't use his right foot at all. So putting him out on the right means he has to cut in on his left, and it's just easy for defenders to read. Um, and more to the point, I just don't think he looks that interested either, which is a big concern. He just doesn't seem interested in improving. And again, like I say, brought off early, just like Davis was, which I think seems to hint at the biggest issues in that side. The two weakest links out of a completely weak side were them two, and they were brought off. So yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff going around about Gordon at the moment. He's apparently ill at the moment. No one's entirely sure how much truth there is in that. Obviously he's being touted around. Tottenham are meant to be interested. Obviously there's a chance Chelsea go back in for him, but if Gordon's available, I know there's a lot of ill feeling around him at the moment as well, but he's got to start over McNeil, hasn't he? Um, I do think we need a winger in this January transfer window, at least one. Obviously we got Townsend to come back at some point. Is he gonna have much impact either? It's very bleak, especially going forwards. We just look completely bereft of any sort of creativity. And similarly, Damari Gray, obviously the hero against Manchester City, with his really well taken equaliser. And there were a few again glimpses, few flashes of quality, I guess, in the first half, but a lot of what I've had a lot of criticism for Gray throughout his time at Everton is poor decision making, and then in the second half he just completely gave up. Really, he wasn't tracking back, and yeah, I can't give him any higher than a 4. Similarly with Calvert-Lewin, just had no impact on the game whatsoever. Marked out of it by Duncan Colwell. We just had him completely locked down and wasn't winning headers, wasn't getting in the box and getting on crosses, which was pretty much our only source of like attacking creativity in that first half, was sending in crosses. And if Calvert-Lewin's not getting his head on them, then there's literally no point of doing that. So yeah, it's odd because I still think it's going forward that was the main issue against Brighton. I think if we somehow manage to worm a goal out of somewhere in the first half, maybe that collapse doesn't happen. It gives us some sort of foundation to build on and maybe defend a bit better. But like I say, once we let in a one or two, we just seem to completely fall to pieces. We did it against Bournemouth twice in a week. Like I say, a lot of those players were on the pitch when we did it to Watford last season. But we're not a confident team, and once there's any sort of pressure on us, we just seem to go to pieces, which does not bode well for a relegation battle. Let's be honest. Similarly, I never go into subs, but Isaac Price came on and was probably the best player for us out of the whole team. He was the only one who seemed to give his all on the pitch, and I think most of Goodison felt sorry for him because young lads. I think he's come on off the bench for us once or twice before, but won't have played many times in the Premier League if at all, and completely thrown in the deep end. Like, I know a lot of ill feeling is around Lampard at the moment. I do have sympathy. I don't think many managers would be able to get much out of this squad. I genuinely don't. And there's criticism over him for not making changes earlier, but I don't see what on that bench would have made that result any different. I really don't. I don't think what changing anything at half time would have done would have had any impact. Um, we saw the likes of Morpay and Decore and Sims, of course, who's been recalled. He got his first few minutes back in an Everton shirt. And like I say, I know the game was dead by that point, but are they really going to have that much of an impact that it's a crime that they weren't brought on earlier? I it The issue for me is that we can't keep doing this. Like, this is such a similar position to what we were last season. You know, majority of the fan base has completely lost patience with the manager, like they did with Benitez, and someone gets brought in January, brings in a few of their signings, and I think a lot of us realised we were quite fortunate to stay up last season. We just about managed to get over the line. Obviously, the fans played a big part in that. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that again? Is it going to be enough this time? There's so many questions, and I think a lot of us are just a bit stumped for answers. Um, and obviously the ill feeling towards the board, which like similarly I completely feel. Are they any more like clued in than we are? Do they have an answer? I don't. I think a lot of us will be of the opinion that they don't. Um, and obviously, like I say, the Man City result was excellent, completely unexpected. Um, could have been a valuable point, but at the end of the day, this is what Everton. This is probably the Everton that we've got at the moment. That was a much clear representation of them against Brighton, and it does seem like one of those turning points. Like I say, the Watford game last season, or a Norwich, or even the Burnley. I know this is very early days. I know obviously because of the World Cup, we're not even halfway through the season yet, but time is running out, and this team isn't getting any better. I don't think. Um, and like I say, we've got a fan base that has almost completely lost patience with the manager. It's all very toxic at the moment, and it's it's going to take something big, I think, to turn it around. So whether that's a new manager, whether that's new signings, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's not looking great at the moment. But I could ramble all day, and it's depressing me, so I'm not going to. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Um, yeah, please leave in the comments giving your thoughts. Like I say, I know there will be a lot of people that will want to be a lot harsher on the players that I've been. Um, Obviously, as well, give your thoughts about whether you want to keep Lampard. Who would you bring in? That's the main issue for me as well. Of course, I don't know if we do start Lampard. Is there anyone actually that much better out there available who would come? You know, people throw Tuchel or Pochettino out there. They're not going to come to this. The club's a mess, um, and there's a fan base that have completely lost patience with the board, and that don't have a lot of patience with managers either. And like I said, I'm not blaming the fans or anything like that, but it's yeah, like I say, there's so no one's really too sure what to think, are they really? But I think something we can all come to terms with is that we're not very good, and it's probably going to be another struggle this season. So yeah, on that positive note, please leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more Everton content on the Toffee Boys channel. And we will see you in the next video of United on Friday. Looking forward to that one. So yeah, cheers.